Hello friends. So having looked into the second law of thermodynamics rather extensively, we want to branch out and reach or understand concepts that would help us describe the change in the state of the system, particularly when the system is a material. So we want to build on our understanding of the second law of thermodynamics, which we looked into extensively, and we want to gather even more steam, and we want to relate all these concepts to understanding the behavior of a material, the change that is exhibited by a material. So in order to do that, in our previous lecture, we reconsidered certain expressions, or we reconsidered certain thermodynamic functions that will help us describe change in the state of the system. So we have been considering a set of thermodynamic function and thermodynamic variables for a while now. And the reason we have been considering is primarily because we want to make use of these thermodynamic functions and variables to describe the change in the state of the system that we observe in a physical world. So we do not want to restrict ourselves purely with the theoretical consideration, purely thermodynamics as a theoretical study. We want to relate it to the physical world. When we see a change in the state of a system, be it a material system or be it any other system, we want to describe it using or within the thermodynamic framework. And that is reason why we have been extensively considering different thermodynamic functions and their corresponding variable. On top of it, we were attempting to rather replace certain variable or make use of Maxwell's relation, or we want to rather ensure that the variables that we use to describe the change in the state of the system are rather accessible to us. So when we are considering the physical world, the variables that we use to describe the change in the state of that physical system are the variables that we can easily measure, or the variables that we can easily rather access. So in order to do that, we attempted to get rid of the entropy or the influence of entropy in the thermodynamic functions. We attempted to get rid of the entropy, the role of entropy directly, or the change in the entropy. And this we were able to do through Maxwell's relation. And apart from that, we also were able to remove, or we were also able to replace the direct role of entropy on the thermodynamic functions. So we saw in the previous lecture that the change in the entropy, it governs internal energy and enthalpy, and using Maxwell's relation we were able to rather replace the influence of the change in the entropy. However, the entropy as it is, it influenced, or it was an integral part of describing Gibbs and the Helmholtz free energy, and we were able to replace that as well, and we arrived at Gibbs-Helmholtz equation. So in Gibbs-Helmholtz equation, it describes the change in the Helmholtz and Gibbs free energy without the influence of the entropy. And the key point here is, even though using Maxwell's relation or in the Gibbs-Helmholtz expression, even though we were able to replace the role of change in entropy or entropy respectively, it does not mean that we are compromising the potential of these two or these thermodynamic functions. So when you identify that this thermodynamic function would be appropriate for describing the change in the state of this system, then we will be able to use that particular function without considering the role of entropy. So that is what we have done. We have increased the applicability without compromising its potential. So that is what we have done. So this we were able to do so by replacing the role of entropy with equivalent variables. So we have no way compromising the role or the purpose of these different thermodynamic functions. Now, apart from the using Maxwell's relation, and apart from the Gibbs-Thomson or Gibbs-Helmholtz expression, apart from this, we saw in our previous lecture that a thermodynamic function can also be related to a material constant. So it becomes even more straightforward for us to describe the change in the state of the system if the thermodynamic function, the change in the corresponding thermodynamic function that helps us in describing that change in state is related to a material constant. So we saw as an example in the previous lecture, if there is a thermodynamic function that is dependent on two state variables A and B, And we see the change in the state of the system that we see is characterized by these two change in the state, state variables. Then the change in the thermodynamic function that helps us describe the change in the state of the system can be expressed as the change in the variable or change in the function with respect to a specific variable, and the change in the thermodynamic function with respect to the other variable, assuming the counterpart is constant. So if we are able to relate this partial derivative, that is the change in the thermodynamic function with respect to that particular variable, to a material constant. So what we mean by material constant is the property of the material at that during the material is experiencing a change. So if we are able to relate this partial derivative, that is the change in the thermodynamic function with respect to the specific variable, to a material property or a material constant, then the change in the thermodynamic function that will help us describe thermodynamically how the system changes can be expressed using these material constants. So if we know these material constants and we are able to measure how these thermodynamic variables, this characteristic thermodynamic variable changes, then we would be able to rather describe the change in the state of the system. So we moved away from removing the role of entropy, which we assumed or we deemed to be rather tricky, to expressing the change in the state of the system based on material constant. Now in the previous lecture we adopted this approach and we were able to express the change in the Gibbs free energy using material constant. So we consider a system, and this system is experiencing a non-isothermic change in state. So there is a change in the temperature involved, and in that case we saw that the change in the Gibbs free energy associated with the system can be expressed as the temperature change, that is the change in the system, that is the temperature change that is associated with the system, that is the system changes from T1 to T2, and we have the corresponding system constant or the material constant dt minus 1 by T, rather the same change in the temperature So this way we were able to relate the change in the thermodynamic function with to a material constant. So this material constant here is the heat capacity at constant pressure. Now if we know the heat capacity at constant pressure and we were able to measure the change in the temperature, we will then be able to describe thermodynamically the non-isothermal change in the state of the system that is experienced by it. Now we saw in our previous lecture the more accurate way of writing this expression would be delta G. The change in the Gibbs free energy is the integration of the temperature change, wherein the heat capacity is a constant that is dependent on temperature. So when we include the heat capacity, or when we describe the heat capacity as a material constant, a material property that is dependent on temperature, this expression here becomes more accurate. So we are now in a position to describe the change in the state of the system based on a material property or a material constant. Now in the previous lecture we saw that when the transformation, it begins with absolute zero or 0 Kelvin and it reaches a temperature T, then in that case the change in the, when the system changes or the change in the system is dictated by the change in the temperature from 0 Kelvin to a particular temperature, then the corresponding change in the Gibbs free energy that dictates or that describes thermodynamically the change in the state of the system can be written as this. So this is one of the critical expression that we looked into in the previous class. Now, while considering this expression, we also saw that we began with this expression here, that is the change in the Gibbs free energy is the combination of enthalpy and change in entropy. And when we consider the change in entropy for a non-isothermal change, then it is the difference between entropy at a given temperature minus, or the final temperature minus entropy at the initial temperature. Now if we start with, or if we consider a change in the state that begins with absolute 0 to a temperature T, then the delta S would be the entropy at a given temperature T minus the entropy at absolute 0. And this will be equal to, we saw in the previous lecture, that this will be equal to 1 by T, or 1 by T Cp dt. So this is how the entropy is related to the material constant. Now, one critical understanding or one critical aspect of our discussion in the previous lecture was, if we know this term here, that is the entropy at 0 Kelvin or absolute 0, if we know this value, then we will be able to calculate the entropy at any given temperature, provided we know the material constant, that is heat capacity of that system. So from this expression we will be able to estimate entropy at any given temperature. So one variable, thermodynamic variable, which we assumed to be was tricky, is now made accessible to us through this expression here. So we considered Maxwell's acceleration, we considered Gibbs-Helmholtz expression. So all these things we consider because we want to avoid the usage of entropy. And through this expression, it now has become possible for us to estimate this particular tricky variable. And that is possible if and only if we are able to estimate the entropy at 0 Kelvin. So once we are able to estimate the entropy at 0 Kelvin, and if we know the heat capacity of the system, then using this expression here, we will be able to calculate the entropy at any given temperature. So once you are able to do that, you will be able to ultimately calculate the change in entropy at two different temperatures. All you need to do is substitute the temperatures here and temperature here, and you will be getting the entropy at two different temperatures, and then you will be able to include directly the expression for entropy here, and you will be able to estimate the change in the Gibbs free energy for a non-isothermal process. So you observe a non-isothermal change in the state of the system, and you will be, instead of using any other description, you will be able to use this canonical description of the Gibbs free energy, and you will be able to express this, or you will be able to describe it based on entropy, provided we know the entropy of the system at 0 Kelvin. Now that is one importance of understanding the entropy at 0 Kelvin. Now if you build on it, like if you consider this expression here which we began with, and the expression now we have with us, which involves the material constant, that is the heat capacity of the system. So when you compare these two expressions here, what we essentially have is, we saw that the heat capacity of the system is dependent on temperature, and as the temperature tends to 0, the heat capacity of the system at constant pressure will also be equal to, or it will also be close to 0. So it also tends to be close to 0. Now if you assume that case, if you assume that the temperature is 0 and the heat capacity of the system it also nears to 0, then in that case, when you consider this expression here, which is largely dependent on this particular constant. So this expression, in this expression you have two terms, this term here and this term here. Now when your temperature is going to 0, when your temperature is close to 0, then this temperature or this term here automatically becomes 0, because it is preceded by the temperature term. So therefore, as the temperature goes to 0, this entire term becomes rather insignificant. So the only term that would play any role would be this term here. And when you consider the change in the Gibbs free energy, with respect to temperature, so you are bringing this dt here, so the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature, it is equivalent to the heat capacity at constant pressure, and again it is dependent on temperature. So when the temperature is close to 0, this term gets rather insignificant, and therefore you are only left with this term here, and you are bringing the dt down, so you are taking the partial derivative of the change in Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature, then it is equal to the heat capacity at that temperature. So when we are considering the temperature range that is close to the absolute zero, then this term here, that is the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature, will also be 0. So what essentially we have arrived at is, considering the dependence on the material constant and temperature, particularly considering the behavior of the material constant, the heat capacity, close to absolute zero, and imposing or substituting that understanding in this expression here, we observe that when we are considering a system change that is close to zero, close to absolute zero, the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the temperature is also 0. Now we can extend the same understanding to the change in the or rather change in the enthalpy. This term, the change in the enthalpy, is the term which is the first term of this expression. The change in the enthalpy is the first term of this expression, which is nothing but for the non-isothermal process, the change in the enthalpy will be something like this. So the first term is the change in the enthalpy, the second term is the change in the entropy, and because the second term involves the temperature directly, so when we are considering the change in the state that is close to absolute zero, this term vanishes off, this term becomes insignificant. So the only term here is because, the only contribution here is because of the enthalpy. So at close to zero, what we essentially have is the change in the Gibbs free energy is equal to change in the enthalpy. Now we saw that the change in the Gibbs free energy when the temperature is close to zero is 0. So therefore what we essentially have is the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature, the change in the enthalpy with respect to temperature will be equal to 0. So we are largely considering the expression, or we are largely considering the change in the thermodynamic function close to 0. We are considering in this case here, we have considered the change in or the entropy, a thermodynamic variable at absolute zero. Here we are considering change in the thermodynamic function close to absolute zero. And when we are considering the change in the thermodynamic function close to absolute zero, we observe that change in Gibbs free energy and change in enthalpy both are equal. So when we are considering absolute zero, so this term here, even in the canonical case, we can see when the temperature tends to be 0, this term here becomes insignificant. So therefore we arrive at this relation, change in the Gibbs free energy is equal to change in the enthalpy when the temperature moves to absolute zero. And now using the property of the material constant, using the feature of the material constant, we are able to state that the change in the Gibbs free energy and the change in the enthalpy close to the absolute zero is also 0. Now these are some unique features that we observe close to the absolute zero. So absolute zero, it poses us two interesting rather behavior. So if we are able to identify the entropy at absolute zero, we will be able to calculate the entropy at any given temperature. Secondly, when operating at the absolute zero, the change in the Gibbs free energy is equal to change in the enthalpy, and the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature is equal to change in the enthalpy with respect to temperature. Both are insignificant and both are rather equal to 0. So this is referred to as Nernst heat equation. So this is referred to as opposed to Fourier's heat equation. We have in the framework of thermodynamics, we have Nernst heat equation or Nernst heat theorem, because in addition to being shown theoretically this has also been observed, or this has also been concluded through some certain experimental studies. So at absolute zero, we have certain behavior that are associated with the thermodynamic function, and there is a key point in identifying the entropy, or identifying the entropy at absolute zero help us make the entropy at any temperature accessible. Now, even though there is a characteristic feature associated with this Nest heat theorem or equation, our primary goal, or one that we should be interested in, is this particular expression here. So even though the consideration of absolute zero, the treatment of thermodynamic function and variable close to the absolute zero might sound interesting, it might give us some interesting relation. Practically, the more an expression that we should be interested in is this one here, because this makes the concept of entropy more approachable. So for that, we need to know what is the entropy at 0 Kelvin. So in order to do that, we will go back to the expression for the Gibbs free energy, the canonical one, which relates the enthalpy, temperature, and the change in the entropy. Now, let us consider the change in these thermodynamic functions and variables with respect to temperature. When we do that, we end up with this expression like this. We are considering change in each of these thermodynamic functions with respect to the temperature. And when we do that, we end up with the expression something like this. So all that we have considered is, we have considered change in these functions and variables with respect to temperature. So we end up with this expression here. Now, if you consider this expression here alone, separately, or rather if you consider the change in the Gibbs free energy in terms of the expression, or in terms of the thermodynamic, so here it is the combination of thermodynamic functions and thermodynamic variable. So here the thermodynamic function is enthalpy and variable is entropy. If you consider it, the change in the Gibbs free energy entirely in terms of the thermodynamic functions, and rather in terms of the thermodynamic variables alone, not the combination of functions, or not the combination of functions and variables. If we consider the change in the Gibbs free energy in terms of variables alone, it would involve temperature and pressure. So in that case, this expression will be minus S dt. So if you could recollect, we had this expression dg is equal to minus S dt plus v dp. So this is an expression that we considered, or while we were considering using Maxwell's relation to arrive at certain expressions, we have seen that the Gibbs free energy is dependent on temperature and pressure, and it is of this form. Now, when you consider the change in the Gibbs free energy, so with respect to temperature again, so we are not considering just the change in the Gibbs free energy, but we already have a change in the Gibbs free energy. We have delta G. With that, we have an influence of temperature. So we have delta G, and with that, for that delta G, we want to see how this delta G changes with respect to temperature. Now, when you consider with respect to temperature, this whole term vanishes off, because when compared to temperature, for this term here, the temperature is constant, so therefore this whole term vanishes off. Now, in an ideal case, the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature will be minus S. Now what we are considering is, we are not considering G alone, we are considering change in G with respect to temperature. So we already have a change in the Gibbs free energy, and that change we are considering it with respect to temperature. So therefore this will be equal to minus delta S. So I hope you are able to distinguish between the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature, or we have already delta G and change in delta G with respect to temperature. So the change in Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature is minus S. So there is a change in delta G. So there is already a delta G. So this delta G could be maybe because of say a chemical reaction. So this we already have delta G, and there is a change in this, so this delta G is now changing with respect to the temperature. Now in that case, so we all should have a corresponding change in the enthalpy. So it is nothing but having G1, which is S1 TD, so minus S1 TD plus V1 dP, and G2, which is minus S2 TD plus V2 dP. Now delta G will be G1 or G2 minus G1, and this will involve delta, or this expression G2 minus G1 would involve minus S2 plus S1 dt plus V2 minus V1 dP. So when you consider this will be delta S. And when you now have an expression for delta G, the change in delta G with respect to temperature, when you consider that, then this term will vanish off. So this term will vanish off, and ultimately you would end up with this being equal to minus delta S, where delta S is equal to S2 minus S1. So I hope you are able to understand this relation here, as it is vital. So what we have now shown is change in delta G with respect to temperature is minus Gs. So when we substitute this minus Gs here in this expression, so when we substitute this relation here in this expression, then what we end up having is minus delta S is equal to these two terms, that is change in delta H with respect to temperature minus change in delta H with respect to temperature, change in delta S with respect to temperature minus this. And ultimately we have two similar terms on the right and left hand side of the equation, so therefore these two terms gets cancelled out, and all you are left with is change in the delta H with respect to temperature minus the change in delta S with respect to temperature is equal to 0. So this is the expression we end up with. Now when the temperature is close to 0, we already saw, or we have seen from the Nernst heat theorem, that when the temperature is close to 0, the change in the enthalpy or change in delta H with respect to temperature is equal to 0. Now substituting that, what we end up having, and removing the T as well, what we end up having is close to 0, the change in the entropy with respect to temperature is 0. This is only possible when the change in the entropy is 0. So here the change in delta S with respect to temperature. Now it is important for us to understand that delta S, as we have seen here, is because of two different processes. So we have two different processes and we have corresponding S1 and S2, and that S1 and S2, the difference between the S1 and S2 is changing with temperature, and that is equal to 0. So to put it, if you want to simplify this is S2 minus S1 by dt as 0. So this is what this expression means. And now this is equal to 0. So this is equal to 0 only when the delta S is 0. Now if we consider this change in the delta S, or if we assume a condition wherein the change in the delta S is brought about by the reaction of two elements, say A and B are reacting to give us AB at temperature that is close to 0. So we are operating under the condition that is the temperature is close to 0, and when we operate under such a condition, we end up having this expression here that yields us this expression here, and this expression is possible only when delta S is 0. And when delta S is 0, so what could be the reason for this delta S? So what could be the reason for the change in entropy? In order to have such a change in entropy which is equal to 0, we are assuming a change in the state of the system, that is reaction of two pure elements. So we will restrict ourselves in this derivation to solid systems. So what we are having is two pure elements, solid elements, element A and element B. Two pure solid metals A and B. They are reacting to give us a metal AB, an alloy AB. So there is metal A and metal B. These are reacting to give us AB. So during this there is an entropy change, and that entropy change should be equal to 0. So you have an entropy change because of this chemical reaction, that is delta S, and this delta S with respect to this change in the delta S with respect to temperature is 0. So I hope you are able to understand this expression and relate it to this expression here. So this delta S for the change, or for this expression here, would be the entropy of the product minus the entropy of the reactant. So delta S for this reaction would be the difference between the entropy of the product and the entropy of the reactant, thus it's SA plus SB. This because, so this would be the change in the entropy for this reaction here, and since all this is occurring at absolute 0, then this condition needs to be satisfied. So therefore SAB would be minus SA minus SB should be equal to 0. So what we essentially have is, what we have arrived at is, at absolute 0, the entropy of an alloy, a solid solution that comprises of two homogeneous pure elements, metals, AB, will be equal to SA plus SB. So this is what we have arrived at. So from this expression we have arrived at this expression here. Now when you consider a homogeneous solid at absolute 0, now when you consider a homogeneous solid, particularly a homogeneous metal at absolute 0, so these metals, they occupy specific position. So often these metals are referred to as the crystalline solids. Crystalline solids meaning they occupy specific positions. These metals A and B, in both these metals, the atoms of these metals, so if you consider the arrangement of these atoms in both A and B, they occupy specific position. So when these metals, when the atoms occupy specific position, the entropy is possible. The disorderliness, degree of disorderliness is possible only when one of this position is vacant. Let me repeat. For a crystalline system wherein the atoms occupy specific position, disorderliness is possible only when you have a vacancy. So when you have a vacancy, there are quite few ways you can arrange this arrangement of atoms. You can arrange these positions of atoms. So when you have one vacancy here, it is possible for you to have an arrangement wherein the vacancy is shifted here. It is possible for you to have another positions of atoms wherein the vacancy is shifted here. So thereby, by shifting the vacancies, you will be able to arrive at several different configurations of the atoms. So several different positions of the atoms are possible, and this is what we refer to as an entropy. So this vacancy here creates the possibility of disorderliness, and this is what we refer to as entropy. So an entropy in a crystalline system is possible only when there is a vacancy associated with it. Now at absolute 0, what we have is, we don't have any vacancy. So this vacancy is a temperature dependent defect, and at absolute 0 we don't have any vacancy. So for a pure element A and B, there is no vacancy present in the arrangement of the atoms. So when there is no vacancy present in the arrangement of the atom, then there is no possibility of introducing any disorderliness. So therefore the entropy of the pure element A and the entropy of pure element B will be equal to 0. Again, the reason why the entropy of pure elements at absolute 0, again this is at 0 Kelvin. The reason why we need the entropy of the pure elements, pure homogeneous elements are or is 0 at absolute 0 is because in order to introduce entropy in a crystalline solid meaning for a crystalline solid you need to have regular arrangement of the atoms. So atoms have specific positions. So in order to, if we want to introduce entropy in the regularly arranged atoms, we need a defect, we need a vacancy. This vacancy is dependent on temperature. The amount of this vacancy is dependent on temperature. So when you have a vacancy, it will be easy for us to introduce disorderliness. We saw that when we have a vacancy, there are numerous ways of arranging the atoms. So therefore, these are referred to as the disorderliness. But when we don't have a vacancy, since all these atoms are identical, it will not be possible for us to introduce the disorderliness without changing the positions of the atoms. So the positions of the atoms are fixed, there is no vacancy present, so it becomes, and all these atoms are identical, so it becomes difficult for us to introduce a disorderliness. So no degree of disorderliness is possible. Since no degree of disorderliness is possible, the entropy of that material at that temperature is 0. So therefore, for a homogeneous solid, a crystalline solid at absolute 0, the entropy is also 0. There is no entropy possible. Now again, we are able to make this assumption, or we are able to arrive at this conclusion primarily because we have assumed the solids to be crystalline, and we have assumed that these solids are rather at equilibrium with the temperature. So only when these solids are at equilibrium with the temperature, there will be no vacancies present in this solid. So you don't have any vacancies because the solid is at equilibrium with the temperature, and because of the lack of vacancies, no disorderliness is possible, and since there is no disorderliness that is possible, the entropy of these two pure elements is 0 at absolute 0. Now when the entropy of the pure elements are 0 at absolute 0, then the entropy of the solution that results from it, be it solid solution, so considering AB being the solid solution, will be equal to 0 as well. So what we essentially have found is, we have realized now that for a solid at 0 Kelvin, for a crystalline solid at 0 Kelvin, which is in equilibrium with the temperature, the solid can have one element, two element, or any number of elements. So the crystalline solid can have any number of elements, and this crystalline solid is in equilibrium with the temperature. In that case, the entropy of that solid is equal to 0 at 0 Kelvin. So this is what we refer to as the third law of thermodynamics. And this third law of thermodynamics was a statement that was rendered by, again we have Nernst, Planck and Simon. So often the third law of thermodynamics is referred to as the Nernst, Planck and Simon's statement of the third law of thermodynamics. So what is concisely the third law of thermodynamics states that the entropy at 0 Kelvin or at absolute 0 is 0 for a crystalline solid that is in equilibrium with the temperature. So internally the crystalline solid is in equilibrium with the temperature. Only then the entropy of that crystalline solid will be 0 at 0 Kelvin. So since the third law of thermodynamics comes with certain qualification. So what are the qualification? What we mean by qualification? Because we need certain conditions to be satisfied for the entropy to be 0. So those conditions are, the solid that we are considering, the material that we are considering should be crystalline. That is one condition. Secondly, this material should be homogeneous and should be in internal equilibrium with the temperature. So what we mean by internal equilibrium with the temperature? So we are considering 0 Kelvin. So 0 Kelvin, at 0 Kelvin there should not be any vacancy. So when these conditions are satisfied, only then the entropy of, so any solid, any crystalline solid with any number of elements present in it. Irrespective of that, if these conditions are satisfied, one is it is crystalline, and secondly, the second condition that needs to be satisfied is the internal equilibrium with temperature. So meaning the number of vacancies is dependent on temperature, and the temperature is 0, the vacancies is 0. So no vacancy, no dissolidness, meaning the entropy is 0. So only when these two conditions, crystalline solid and internal equilibrium, is satisfied, then the entropy of that particular crystalline system with any number of elements present in it will be 0. So now that we have identified a way to calculate, or we have through the third law of thermodynamics know what is the entropy of a given crystalline solid at 0 Kelvin, we will be able to calculate, going back to our expression here, we will be able to, rather here, we will be able to calculate the entropy of any crystalline solid at any temperature. So this is the third law of thermodynamics. Now, since the third law of thermodynamics is dependent on, or it is qualified by these two conditions here. So these two conditions need to be satisfied for the third law of thermodynamics to be accurate. So because of these two conditions, what we have is, we also have certain deviations from the third law of thermodynamics. We have certain materials that do not follow the third law of thermodynamics. So one such material is amorphous solids or glass. So amorphous solids or glass. So in these materials, what we essentially don't have is, we don't have crystallinity. We don't have specific positions for the atoms to occupy. So when you don't have specific positions for the atoms to occupy, irrespective of the temperature you are in, it is possible for you to consider or to have different configurations of atomic arrangements. So the restriction with the atomic arrangement is only possible when the atoms occupy specific positions. And the degree of dissolvedness is 0 only when the atoms occupy specific positions. Now, when the atoms occupy random position, then in those cases, it is rather straightforward for, or it is rather possible for us to introduce disorderliness irrespective of the temperature. So one such material is glass or any amorphous solid, wherein there is no regular position for the atoms to occupy in a long range. So therefore, in those materials, the entropy will not be, we don't have to expect the entropy to be 0 for the material at absolute 0. And secondly, if we have isotopes of a given element, so superficially the size of the atom, it remains the same, but because of the difference in the atomic number and atomic weight, we have different isotopes. So when we have an alloy, or when we have a material, a crystalline solid that comprises of different isotopes, so you will be having a crystalline solid of just A, but in that A you will be having different isotopes that are present. Then you have different isotopes that are present in a given pure solid element. So you have a crystalline solid element, crystalline solid of element A, and in that, in addition to one isotope of A, there is also another isotope of A present. Then it becomes possible for us to introduce disorderliness by rearranging the different isotopes of the element A. So instead of vacancy here, you could assume this red atom to be a different isotope. So once you have a different isotope in this arrangement of the atoms, it becomes possible for us to have different configuration. It becomes possible for us to introduce disorderliness. So then, when you have an element with its isotope present in the crystalline solid, even though it's a pure element, but it comprises of an additional isotope, then it becomes possible for us to introduce, this would be A or B, it becomes possible for us to introduce disorderliness in these pure elements. And once we are able to introduce disorderliness in these pure elements, then the entropy of the pure element A or B will not be equal to 0, and that will make the overall entropy not equal to 0. So, one when you don't have regular positions for the atom, you will be able to introduce disorderliness. Secondly, when you have isotopes of the atoms present in the crystalline arrangement, we will be able to introduce disorderliness. So both these will affect the third law of thermodynamics. And thirdly, when the internal equilibrium with the temperature is disturbed, when there is certain amount of vacancies that are present even though the temperature is at absolute zero, then the third law of thermodynamics will be disturbed. So the third law of thermodynamics is rather a conditional law, and it is rather restricted to, or it is rather is fulfilled only certain criterions are met. So only when certain criterion are met, you will be able to observe the third law of thermodynamics. So third law of thermodynamics states that for a crystalline solid at absolute zero, irrespective of how many elements are present in the crystalline solid, the entropy of that solid is zero. So you can have any number of elements, but the entropy of that crystalline solid is zero, provided it's a crystalline solid. Secondly, it is in equilibrium with the temperature. Now, the deviations of it are of course possible, because we have to fulfill the crystallinity and we have to fulfill the internal equilibrium. Now, once you compromise the crystallinity, you end up with amorphous solids, and in amorphous solids, one cannot expect the third law of thermodynamics to be fulfilled. And secondly, when your system is not in equilibrium with the temperature, particularly at equilibrium at 0 Kelvin, there should not be any vacancies. But because of the non-equilibrium of this particular material, you have certain amount of vacancies. Then what we essentially have is, we essentially end up with introducing the possibility of disorderliness, thereby increasing the entropy. In addition to these two, it is also possible for us to have an isotope of a pure element present. Even if you are considering a pure element at 0 Kelvin, it is possible for us to have an isotope of it present in the crystalline arrangement, and because of this isotope, it is possible for us to rearrange or bring about the disorderliness. So then again, we will be disturbing the third law of thermodynamics. So even though the law of thermodynamics is helpful, one way it is helpful is it helps us calculate the entropy of a crystalline solid at any temperature. Even though it is helpful, it is rather conditional in nature, and it comes up with certain qualification, and only when these qualifications are satisfied, we will be able to observe the third law of thermodynamics. So with this, we will wind the structure up, and we will move into a completely different domain, or we will rather focus on our desired interest, that is the relating thermodynamics to the materials from the subsequent lecture onwards. Goodbye.